We're all chasing a ghost. You think $1 million is the finish line. You think that magic number, with those 6 zeros, will finally let you exhale. I used to think that too. I'm 35 now. And let me tell you the harshest truth about money. Having $1 million won't make you feel safe. Actually, it might make you more anxious than ever. Now, before we dig into why our brains are wired this way, just a quick heads up. I'm just a guy sharing what I've learned. This is strictly for educational purposes. It's not professional financial advice. All right, let's get into the psychology. From the time we get our first paycheck, we build this myth in our heads. If I just had $1 million, I could quit my terrible job. I wouldn't stress about bills. I'd finally be happy. But here's the catch. The human brain doesn't care about absolute numbers. It cares about survival. And your survival instinct is never satisfied. When you're broke, your anxiety is tied to tomorrow. How do I pay rent? How do I buy groceries? But when you cross that $1 million mark, the anxiety doesn't vanish. It transforms. It mutates into something entirely different. You start asking, what if I lose it all? What if the market crashes? What if my business fails? You traded the stress of not having enough for the terror of losing what you built. That safety net you worked so hard for, it suddenly feels like a tightrope, and you are standing right in the middle, looking down, terrified of the fall. You realize the finish line was just an illusion, a mirage in the desert. You worked 10, maybe 15 years to get there. And the second you arrive, your brain whispers, this isn't enough. Let's talk about something called the hedonic treadmill. It's a fancy psychological term, but the concept is brutally simple. As you make more money, your expectations rise right alongside it. You don't even realize it's happening. It's the silent killer of financial peace. When you were 22, a cheap beer and a frozen pizza was a great Friday night. You were happy. Now, you have a bit of money. So you upgrade the apartment. You buy a safer, nicer car. You start wearing clothes that actually fit. None of this is bad, but your brain adapts. That new luxury car? After 3 months, it's just the car you use to get to work. That spacious house. It just becomes normal. This is lifestyle creep, and it hijacks your nervous system. You thought $1 million would buy you freedom, but instead, you bought a more expensive cage. Your baseline for happiness shifted. So now, maintaining this new normal requires constant fuel. You have to keep running. If you slow down, you can't afford the lifestyle you've convinced yourself you need. You are trapped by your own success. I've seen guys hit $1 million and immediately start sweating about $3 million. Because their overhead grew so fast, $1 million suddenly felt like poverty. It's wild how the mind plays tricks on us. You convince yourself that the next purchase, the next milestone, will bring that elusive feeling of security. But security isn't something you can buy at a dealership. It isn't a zip code. And as long as your spending matches your income, you will always feel like you are one bad month away from losing it all. Now we hit the deepest psychological trap. Loss aversion. This is a concept that won a Nobel Prize, and it explains exactly why having wealth feels so heavy. Psychologists found out something fascinating. The pain of losing $100 hurts twice as much as the joy of finding $100 feels good. We are hardwired to protect what is ours. Back in the caveman days, losing your winter food supply meant death. So, panic was a survival trait. Today, that same ancient brain is managing your bank account. When you have $1 million, you have a massive target on your back. Or at least, that is what your amygdala tells you. You watch the market dip 2%. On $1 million, that's 20 grand. Gone. Just vanished into thin air while you were drinking your morning coffee. Even if you know the market recovers, your brain registers a threat. A physical, visceral threat. You start obsessively checking your portfolio. You start reading doom and gloom articles online. You start playing out worst-case scenarios in the shower. What if inflation eats it all? What if I get sued? What if there is a massive crash? You are no longer playing to win. You are playing not to lose. And playing a defensive game with your life is exhausting. It drains your energy. It steals your focus. The very wealth that was supposed to liberate you now demands your constant attention. You become a highly paid security guard for your own net worth. And let me ask you this. Does a security guard, constantly watching the monitors for a break-in, does he look like a guy who feels safe? Then there is the ego. We don't like to admit it, but we are deeply social creatures. We measure our success by looking left and right. When you were broke, your circle was probably broke too. You were all in the same boat. But as your net worth climbs, your environment changes. You move to a better neighborhood. You join a nicer gym. You start rubbing elbows with a different crowd. And suddenly, your hard-earned $1 million looks like pocket change. You become the poorest rich guy in the room. You see a neighbor pulling up in a $250,000 sports car. You hear a guy at the club talking about his vacation home in Aspen. And your brain, that tricky little comparison machine, goes into overdrive. It whispers, "You are falling behind. You aren't a real player yet. You need more." It is a classic status game. And it is a game you cannot win. Because there is always someone with a bigger boat. There is always someone with a larger portfolio. If your feeling of safety is tied to your position on the social ladder, you will never be secure. Someone will always climb past you. You end up chasing moving targets. Not because you actually need more money to live, but because your ego can't handle being average. Even if average now means being in the top 5%. This is the trap of relative wealth. You stop looking at how far you have come. You only look at the gap between you and the guy who has 10 million. And that gap, it breeds insecurity. It makes a millionaire feel like a complete failure. So where does that leave us? If the money doesn't bring peace, what does? From my experience, safety is an internal job. It's a psychological state, not a financial metric. True security comes when you break the cycle, when you stop moving the goalposts. It comes when you realize that your worth as a man is not tied to your net worth. It is about finding the point of enough. Enough is a superpower. When you can look at your life and say, "I have a roof over my head. My family is fed. I have my health," and genuinely mean it. That is when the anxiety loses its grip. You have to define your own rules. Stop playing the status game. Stop letting your ego write checks your soul has to cash. Money is just a tool. It's a hammer. You can use it to build a beautiful house, or you can accidentally smash your thumb with it. But the hammer itself doesn't make you safe. The skill of the builder does. Build resilience. Build strong relationships. Build a life that you actually enjoy living today, not 10 years from now, because tomorrow is never guaranteed. And a heavy bank account won't keep you warm at night. If this hit home for you, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button, leave a like, and drop a comment down below. Tell me, what does your version of enough look like? Let's get a real conversation going. Your support helps me make more of these videos for you. Stay grounded, keep your head straight, and I will see you in the next one.